Broken. Chapter 8. Free Falling. It felt great to cozy into my freshly washed sheets. The warm milk and honey scent from my softener were enough to put me into a deep sleep. After the day I had with Dean, and his body on top of mine had me in all sorts of emotions to get to sleep. Was I going to dream of being with him on a beach? Or was I going to be his partner in the field helping him to take down a drug kingpin? Who knows? It was dark. I stood in a room completely dark, no sense of light at all. As I completed a full 360 to examine the room, I was confused. It just didn't make sense. Where the hell was I, and what was happening? I took a deep breath of air, and for a minute there was nothing, until there was the scent of rotting flesh. The smell was overpowering, instantly making me gag. I could almost feel the vomit creeping up my throat, ready to escape my lips. What the hell was that? As I continued to walk further into darkness, a light shone ahead of me. The light started small, but the more I kept walking towards it, the bigger it became. Although the smell was more prominent, I could hardly keep going without my eyes beginning to water from the stench. I couldn't help but have a sense of dread wash over me. Whatever this was, I did not want to find out. The light was shining bright enough for me to wince, and I stepped through cautiously. My eyes began to adjust to see my apartment. Everything was in its place, and it seemed rather normal. It was only to my surprise, after scanning the room, I realized the French doors to my bedroom were wide open, and someone was on my bed. I slowly creeped up to the doors to get a better look and began to smile, as it was Dean. His back to me, facing the window. A sigh of relief escaped my lips, which quickly turned into a grin of mischief. Oh, what to do with this handsome man who just happens to be on my bed? Walking to the other side of the bed to Dean made my heart speed up in excitement. There it was again, the smell. It was worse now, even worse than before. My legs gave away as I crumpled to the ground and dry heaved. Why was it so bad? I looked up towards Dean, who laid very still, his eyes open, his mouth open, his face almost stuck in shock, his skin almost gray. What the hell? The sound of tapping forced me to look around and see the pool of blood on the floor coming from Dean caught my attention. It was old, meaning he had been there for a while, rotting. No, this can't be happening. He was fine. Dean was fine. I had just seen him today. He's okay. He must be okay. I forced myself to look at his face once more. His throat moved. Was he trying to speak? Suddenly, hundreds of flies burst from his mouth, swarming all around me. I screamed the most blood-curdling scream I had ever made in my entire life. I stood up, swatting the flies around me, only to lose my balance and fall. 2 arms grabbed a hold of me. Dean? The arms felt familiar. Too familiar. I glanced up to see Curtis's face smiling down at me. No! I pushed myself away, staggering away from him. Easy, little dove, he replied, chuckling. You were always so clumsy. My stomach began to churn. Did you? His smile faded into a malicious seriousness. Did you honestly think I would allow you to be with anyone else but me? Could you honestly stand there and tell me you would be happier with him? He laughed a laugh that made me cringe. A few taps against the wall of the knife he had been holding suddenly hit the floor, still covered in Dean's now old and dry blood. A whimper escaped my lips along with tears. You barely just met the man and you're crying? Oh, Caroline, I didn't expect you to fall for someone so easily. I couldn't answer him after what he had done. I couldn't find the words. I only felt rage and despair. Curtis reached down and grabbed my face hard in order for me to look at him. You know better than to ignore me, Caroline. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction and kept my mouth shut. He didn't deserve anything from me. If he was looking to get a conversation out of me, he was sadly mistaken. The two hands left my face and instead picked up my body and slammed me into the wall. I heard cracking, but I couldn't recognize if it were drywall or my own bones. Everything was black. After what seemed like an eternity, my dream melted to my old apartment that I shared with Curtis. I didn't want to be here, but it was better than staring at Dean's dead body, which had me in shambles. Curtis sat at the dinner table waiting for me to sit down after placing the food down. I remember this day. It was one of the many terrible days I had with Curtis, but it was the first time he ever hit me. This dream seemed to turn into an old memory of my life before moving to Brooklyn. I smiled at Curtis. So, Nicholas has given me full-time work now at the mechanic shop. Curtis grabbed the potatoes and piled them on his plate. How many hours is that? He asked, not once looking towards my direction. Oh, I don't know. I think 40 or so hours a week. So around 8 to 9 hour days. That's what I'm hoping for anyways. I replied sweetly. His face darkened. Why would you hope for that? That means more time away from me. I'm sorry, Curtis, but someone must make a living for this apartment. Someone must pay the bills, so I have to work. It would be nice, though, if both of us worked. It would be less of a struggle. My response came across snarkier and more impatient than I intended, and Curtis indeed picked up on it. He huffed, Well, Caroline, I had tried to get a job, even handed out resumes. No one in this town likes me. They won't give me a chance. They would give you a chance if you just tried. You don't give anyone a chance to get to know you. How is it possible for someone to trust you enough to give you a job? His fist slammed the table, causing it to vibrate. You are judging me like you always do, always making it seem like it's my fault I can't get a job, when it's your locals who are the problem. I sighed and slightly shook my head, putting chicken on my plate. Can you pass the peas? He didn't respond, nor pass the peas. I hate when we did this, and when he acted like such a child. He picked up the peas and put a few spoonfuls of peas on his plate before setting it back down on the table. Can you please pass the peas? I asked again, this time louder. He looked up and smirked. Sure, little dove. He extended his hand with the bowl of peas. Once I reached for it, he let it go. The bowl crashed down to the floor. A mix of peas and glass scattered the floor. My head spun up to see Curtis laughing. He seemed proud of himself that he showed me. What the hell is wrong with you? I yelled. In one fast motion, Curtis's hand slapped me across the face as hard as he could, knocking me backwards in the process. Don't you dare talk to me like that again. I clutched my face as small drops of blood fell on the white tile from a now busted lip. Tears stung my eyes, and the burning sensation on left cheek still fresh. His fingers entangled my hair, lifting me almost off the floor. Do you understand me? He responded. The shock of the whole scenario left me speechless for a few longer moments than Curtis had liked. He pulled me up higher by my hair, causing me to scream. I felt as if I was being scalped. I said, do you understand me, Caroline? All I could do was whimper, yes. before he let go of my hair completely, letting my body crash to the floor. Good, he replied, kicking what was a shattered bowl on the floor with his feet before turning to me. Clean it up, all of it. With a sniffle, I stood up, getting the broom and dustpan. I slowly started to sweep up the remaining pieces before throwing it in the garbage. I picked up my plate from the table and put the chicken, potatoes, and carrots into containers and stored them in the fridge. I really wasn't hungry to eat at this point. This was the first time he had ever laid a hand on me physically and took me completely by surprise. I knew that Curtis was controlling and manipulative. Better, I never thought he would lay his hands on me. If you had kept your mouth shut, little dove, this wouldn't have happened. You understand that, don't you? Curtis asked, grabbing a beer out of the fridge. I wiped my tears and began to clear the rest of the table of the dishes. Curtis intercepted me and repeated himself. Don't you? I couldn't help but look at him full of hate and disgust. I didn't say anything. That's where you're wrong. You blatantly tried to make me feel inferior because you have a job currently and I do not, he explained. He smiled at me as if his statement was the truth. All I said was, it'd be nice if both could contribute to bills. I didn't think it was that much to ask for, I whispered. What about helping around the apartment? I don't see you doing much of that either. I could hear the sound of Curtis gritting his teeth. I shouldn't have to do a woman's household duties, he hissed. Although I didn't mean to, I scoffed at his remark. In one swift motion, he flipped the entire dinner table, causing all the dishes to crash to the ground and explode into tiny pieces. The anger illuminated from his face. His hand began to crush my throat. I coughed as he smacked his hand to release it to no avail. What did I tell you about not keeping your mouth shut? What is with you lately? You are always trying to give me attitude and speaking out of line. I don't know who told you that you could or why you think you can, but that isn't how this works. I thought you said you understood, he said softly. His hand gripped tighter on my throat, causing me to panic and thrash about against him. I can't breathe, and he knows it. After what felt like minutes, he finally released me to collapse against the kitchen sink, trying my best to catch my breath. You have more things to clean up, it seems, he almost chuckled. He walked back into the living room and sat on the couch with his beer. This wasn't love. We had been together for almost 2.5 years at this point, and I never in my life thought he would be capable of this. After slapping me, I could see something in his eyes change. It was like now that he had a taste for inflicting real pain instead of emotional and verbal. He was hungry for more. Who could handle any more of this constant torture? When it was emotional and verbal attacks, I could almost handle it. I even thought a few times that he would change and it would stop. But now? Now I wasn't so sure. I think he is too far gone. He scared me now. It wasn't how he used to make me feel, which had been uneasiness. Now it was a flight or fight response. Like at any moment he could feel like he was done with me and just end me. Despite Curtis only having so much muscle, he wasn't exactly that strong looking, but against me, I was damn near powerless. He made sure of that every chance he got. Sweat beaded off me as I sat up straight in my bed. I looked around violently to see if Curtis was around. I was back in my bachelor pad in Brooklyn. Glancing at the clock, it was just past 4 a.m. I began to use breathing exercises to calm myself down. My sheets soaked in sweat from the nightmare. Great. I had just washed these. I was relieved that I was back in my own apartment with no Curtis in sight. But at the same time, these dreams were really wearing me down. Every night, it seems like I can't sleep properly. I walked into my small kitchen and grabbed a glass of water, chugging the whole glass in one sitting. Well, since I'm up, I might as well change my sheets again and get started on my day. It wasn't like I was going to be able to get back to sleep anytime soon. It doesn't matter what happens to Curtis. He could go to jail for 500 years. The damage he had caused me is going to stay with me in my dreams. He was always going to be there, and I don't think there is anyone in the world who is going to help with that. After finishing all the household chores early, eating my breakfast, and relaxing a while, I decided to take a shower and get ready for the day. My reflection in the mirror didn't look like me. My eyes were bloodshot, and under my eyes were black. It was like I hadn't slept in weeks. It seems like nightmares were slowly taking their tolls on me again. Before I ended up in the hospital, a few people commenting on the same thing, that I looked like I hadn't slept. Being in the hospital in the coma gave me the rest I needed to be back to normal. Normal, however, doesn't last that long. No amount of makeup was going to hide this, but I did my best to try. Before I started my car, a text came in from Dean. He wanted to meet sometime this week again. I really hope I could sleep well the next few nights. He couldn't see me like this.